Hello, listeners. We just wanted to preface this episode by saying that we recorded this prior to the February 28th, 2026 U.S. attack on Iran. As such, there is no mention of this event in our discussion, but we believe that what we discussed remains relevant to the current historical moment. Persepolis has somehow become even more important as a piece of biographical literature since the day we recorded. We encourage listeners to continue to push back against oppressive regimes, find empathy for others, and listen to the voices of those who are affected. I'd like to transition into our episode with some words from Marjane Satrapi herself from an interview we will link in the show notes. The world is not divided into countries. The world is not divided between East and West. You are American, I am Iranian, we don't know each other, but we talk together and we understand each other perfectly. The difference between you and your government is much bigger than the difference between you and me. And the difference between me and my government is much bigger than the difference between me and you. And our governments are very much the same. Welcome to In Sequence, a comics podcast for everyone. I'm Jillian, and these are your panelists today.
Hey, I'm Matt.
And I'm Scout.
Today, we are discussing Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi, which is a graphic novel memoir. Before we start, I will say it does feel a little weird to be leading this again. So when I was a teacher, I taught 10th grade, and one of the options for things that we could teach in the English class was volume 1 specifically of Persepolis. So I do have quite a bit of experience with this book. I read it, a couple times while I was teaching it because I always would reread things while I was teaching them. I believe I read it for my college course on comics, and then I read it originally when I was in 10th grade myself as part of my 10th grade English class.
Oh. Did that inspire you to then teach it when you were teaching?
Not specifically. I mean, I definitely felt when I taught this, I was a special education teacher. Mm-hmm. So one of the reasons that I did advocate for teaching this particular text was because it is a graphic novel and it was a lot more accessible in some ways than other options that were presented to us as things that we could teach. And luckily, my co-teacher, who is the gen ed teacher of the classroom, because we had a blended classroom for this one, she was also fond of it and was like, yeah, absolutely, let's teach that.
Sick.
But neither of you guys have read this before, correct?
Correct. I have distinct childhood memories of it being at the Oscars when the animated film came out, because it was nominated for Best Animated Film. And I remember, I have precise memories of seeing it on the screen because it's such a unique looking movie as well. Mm-hmm. But that's all I knew about it, I think.
I didn't know anything about this book until Lex brought it up, shortly after we had started In Sequence, just in a DM between me and her. And then you mentioned you had taught it. So I knew next to nothing going in, which is picking up context clues from what people were telling me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'm really excited to talk about it. I think this is it's an intense read for sure, which you wouldn't expect based on the art style. In terms of front matter, the artist and author is Marjane Satrapi. The translators, as this was originally written in French, are Matthias Ripa and Blake Ferris, and the lettering was done by Céline Marienne and Yves Deluze. As I mentioned, Persepolis is a graphic novel memoir following Marjane Satrapi's childhood in Iran during the Islamic Revolution. It focuses on how her life and beliefs were affected by political upheaval and her eventual adolescence in Austria. Her memoir covers the good, bad, and ugly of her life and those around her, and focuses deeply on the complexity of politics and belief. And so we're gonna discuss some non-spoilery stuff first, though I do think it is funny to say, like, I'm gonna spoil this real person's life.
Yeah, I'm gonna spoil Marjane Satrapi's life.
Yeah, I will say the thing that we were saying before we started was that I actually didn't know there were 2 volumes because this has been published so many times in so many different ways. It was originally released in like 2 halves. So when I went to search Persepolis, I found the first half, and that's the one that you taught, Jill.
Yes, for the most part. When I learned it as a high schooler, we were told you only have to read part 1, but for extra credit, you can read part 2.
That's very funny.
Like, you would just have to do some like extra work. It was an honors class. That's why they were like, oh yeah, you can do more work if you want. One of the reasons I think they primarily focused on part 1 is because there is a little bit more content that parents would take issue with in part 2.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. It's a little bit more focused, I would say, part 1 is as well. So it makes sense for teaching.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know that, I only read the first part. But I told you in our chat, I do not care about spoilers. This is a book about a real person's life and real things happening to real people in Iran.
Yep.
But we will try and protect the listener from spoilers to lead those to a spoiler section.
I will say, not surprisingly, this book has been attempted to be banned several times.
That's
in schools.
Wild, given the content.
Well, I'm looking at the Wikipedia for this particularly. Part of it was graphic language and images, which, yes, she does say fuck in this book, so like
she does.
Whatever. And there is, discussions of sex and everything like that. The other reasons were newly introduced Islamic literature available to students. So
cool.
Yeah, that's really...
I think in the foreword of the 20th anniversary edition, which I have, Marjane also has a new foreword, and one of the ban reasons that she pointed out in her introduction here is actually that some parents were upset with the one page that goes into specific details about torture. And she was very much like, sorry that I'm trying to tell a story about real things that happened where people were tortured.
Yeah, like, sorry, I'm describing things that actually happened. Yeah. But from what I can tell, for most of the like big name bannings, the book was voted to stay in the schools, even if it was removed for a small bit. So that's good.
Yeah. I'm going to read out this sentence fully from this introduction, actually, because I think it's very good and also relevant. Book has been both beloved and banned, et cetera, for its torture scenes because it's acceptable for assault rifles to be legal in the United States, even if that frequently results in the murder of innocent people. But it's okay for a reader. It's not okay for a reader to see a single drawing documenting the torture of political prisoners. You go, Marjane.
Go off. Go off.
It's a very Iranian French perspective, too. I like that.
Yeah. I did at one point, this is a slight diversion. I was on a panel when I was a senior in high school. I was on a panel that worked with the school board to review books that were up for, like, that parents had complained about and wanted banned from schools.
Oh.
So it is an interesting process. I don't know if it's the same everywhere, but I will say people will try and ban books for the wildest reasons.
I was going to say, I feel like you've told me stories about bizarre book ban propositions from this time.
The reason I only ended up having to do one of these books, but the reason that they didn't want it in an elementary school was because it talked about divorce. Because the character's parent was divorced, and they were like, I don't want that in the school.
Yikes!
So that's fun. But yeah, let's get into this book proper. Every time I read this, so like I said, I've read this several times before, I feel like I get more out of it I like find more to kind of understand, because, you know, when I was a 10th grader, that was, you know, forever ago. And I was like I will say I was not as invested in like the history that's being presented in this book. I was mostly like interested in like Marjane as a character, quote unquote, as a character in the novel. And teaching, I was focused more on the like analysis and the structure and like kind of trying to help students understand it. And then in this reading, I was like, I think Scout, you pointed out some stuff in your notes here. I was just like, God damn, this fucking like really, this is it, huh? This is like the historical context and all of the details about conflicts in the Middle East. I'm like, damn, this shit's still happening, huh? Like we're still in it.
We're still in it, and we're in it. We're in it in a way that to see in this book the perspective of these kinds of conflicts in the Middle East, which has been deeply vilified in our country, the United States, for over 2 decades, only for like you to turn around and the same things that it has been vilified for just be happening in the streets of America right now is overwhelming at moments.
Yeah, that was most of my feelings reading this book. I told you that I was going to be late because the dog was very asleep on my lap, and also I was crying at the end. And most of those feelings were not even like, yeah, I'm not going to, I have a heart. I was upset for the main character and her situation, but a lot of it was that it felt too real to me, that it felt too about me now than I'm used to these things being.
Yeah.
I want to call out that like that is coming from like a really privileged place as well. Like we have grown up in a United States that has benefited us in many ways, right? In ways that other places, other people have not benefited. And also, boy, does it suck to not be sure what's going to happen when I walk out my front door.
Yeah. Boy, howdy, does it suck to realize that you have to find, much like they do in the book, other avenues of finding the information about what is really happening out in the world.
Yeah. Her dad always going to listen to the BBC. Well, a good bit is also like, man, boy, I know that one.
Yeah. But no, I can definitely see where you're coming from, especially like I am not a person who reads a lot of nonfiction. I know that is like a deep like blind spot in my general like reading habits. I am not a nonfiction reader. Usually if I'm reading nonfiction, it is about like I've been like picking at a book on the history of paper. Like it is
that sounds awesome.
I know, it is really cool. It's not about like, if I'm reading nonfiction, it is not about people so much as it is about things.
Right.
Because like I'll read books on writing or on like particular like craft. So I don't usually like get emotional about nonfiction. So I don't usually go into nonfiction expecting to feel so deeply. So like I definitely like can see what you're saying, Matt, too, in the sense of like, this is not always the type of reading that you're expecting to feel so deeply for.
Yeah. I think I have heard, since hearing about this book, talked about similar to like Mouse, like in like the same sentence almost as like like comics that are doing similar things, right? And I have definitely felt when reading things like that. I've actually never read all of Mouse. I've read pieces of Mouse, but like they felt far away, right? They felt distant. And reading this felt extremely now. It felt extremely relevant to my personal life. And that was, I think, the feeling, right? Like I've been emotional reading nonfiction, and I've been emotional reading comics nonfiction, but I've not personally resonated with nonfiction in this way before. And I would say even outside like the realm of comics, like, I think there are a few instances where I have had similar resonance. Like maybe back to the movie that made me come out, right? Like is maybe like the only thing I can think just off the top of my head that I connected with more deeply. And that was just like a documentary about people realizing they were gay. So
I think that humans have an increased capacity for empathy for stories that feel very close and very, very deeply relatable. And sometimes that leads you to very annoying sentiments like that woman is somebody's mother and somebody's daughter instead of that is a woman. But sometimes it is to our great benefit. And I think for me, I think that was part of what made me really emotional about this too, was that because it feels so close, it was an even deeper emotional connection and like something that will stick with me even longer compared to other things that I have read where I feel deeply for the horrific things that it's documenting about history. But it is also a defense mechanism for us to be able to see that distance, because otherwise we cannot exist in the world.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I got weepy-eyed a lot. I cried a lot. I crashed out a little. But I'm really, really... I feel very lucky that this is the moment that I am getting to read this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to say that like I had an emotional reaction to this book, but it's also a good book. Like
it is a really good.
It's not just emotionally activating; it's also written and drawn and crafted incredibly well.
Like there's a reason this is my copy from 10th grade.
Yeah.
Like I have had this book. God, when was 10th grade? Like an insane amount of time ago. Like
20.
No comment, and also Robin is probably listening, saying no comment.
I've had this book for years, like, and it has gone with me through like going to college, going to moving, and now moving here. Like, it is a book that I have reread several times, and like even just from a structural standpoint, like have enjoyed several times over. And even though I have, I read the book, I've known what has happened. I've known, like, I go into it like, yep, I remember this. Like, I think one of the really interesting things about this book is how fucking funny she is.
Yeah.
Truly, yeah.
There are so many, like, single panel, like, punchline moments that simply kill me.
Yeah.
And then the next page you have images of people being, like, killed in the streets.
Yeah.
It's a wild juxtaposition.
Mm-hmm. There's so many moments, like you said, where I was reading and I'm like, I wouldn't call this a funny book, but some things truly make me laugh so hard.
Yeah.
There's a specific panel that I'll call out later.
I love all the stuff with like her extended family.
Oh my God, yes.
Mm-hmm.
They're so funny together, especially when they are like actively talking about the tortures that they were put through.
Yes.
They're just like relate to each other in like goofy, silly, like regular ways, like about the specific ways they were tortured. It's very funny.
Yeah.
In like a really gross way.
Yeah. Because as you got it, there's a section even later in the book that basically comes down to like, you gotta laugh or you'll cry. And sure, everybody says that, but that's because it really is very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a part of it that's like, sometimes you feel like these moments are like only serious, right? But like, I don't know. I don't get through what's happening in America now without making a silly podcast with y'all. You know what I mean? Like, those are two things that are existing at the same time.
Yeah. Like, shit. Scout and I on fucking Sunday made a goddamn joke about where was this Warriors cat on January 6th. Like, you have to like kind of joke about the horrible things, see the entirety of the millennial internet turning 9/11 into a joke. Like, you have to joke about horrible things sometimes, especially if it is something that you have lived through in order to, like, not entirely crash out, collapse, go, like, completely into a dark place.
Yeah.
I also just really like her style of art.
Yeah.
All of like, it is a very simplistic style, but so often you can still tell everyone apart, which is really
that is what shocked me. There's times where I was like, okay, the point here is to not know who's who.
Yes.
But I genuinely, when I looked at it at first, I was like, oh, I don't know about this one. I don't know if I'm going to be into this. And then like I started reading and I was like, oh, there's really nice craft here. Like this look that I thought was going to be oversimplified and difficult to parse actually turned out to be like really intentional and beautiful, and also like I think contributes to some of the like comedy that we're seeing.
Absolutely.
Right? Oh, yeah.
I was just going to say, like, the simplistic style really lets her play with it as a lot more cartoonish in certain moments. Like very early on where she's like, oh, I was going to be a prophet. Like you can still tell that was her, but she's got like this big sun halo around her face.
I do really like this sun halo.
It really does like help kind of play with the space very much. And also this is a thick book. Like this, I think the full thing is 341 pages, which is a wild amount to draw.
Yeah, it's so much to draw. Yeah, the style almost reminds me of woodblock or like hand-carved stamps. I would be really interested to know her process, like the actual physical process of it, and what kind of medium she uses to get it to look like this. It's certainly not the most technically intensive thing that we've read on this podcast, but it is so certain in its visual language. Everything feels like it is exactly what it's meant to be.
Yeah.
In a way that is really like tough to keep that consistency.
I also think I think it's a smart choice because it allows the book to be funny, but it also allows moments that are darker to really contrast. Like it's weird to see the fundamentalists carrying, assault rifles in the streets. It's weird to see in this art style, in this cartoony art style. And that makes those moments heavier, weirdly, right? There's some like pretty rough stuff. There's a lot of panels of people who have been executed, and those specifically are almost like harder to take in because it's in that cartoony art style, but then like makes it easy to flip back to, dad's doing something goofy in the basement or whatever,
That's one of the things that like it's the juxtaposition, I think, is when going into my English major mode, that's like the literary term for I think the way that she is doing it. Usually it is done, textually, but I think it really, really is well done as a visual medium as well.
There was a lot here because I was reading and I was thinking it's tough to I can't really think of something that is comparable to this in quite this way. I think there's definitely the comparison to Mouse is apt in a lot of ways. But like really outside of that, I couldn't think of something that was like a memoir and a comic and serious and not silly. But then it came to mind that there's a lot of comic artists currently right now that are making comics about living in ICE-occupied neighborhoods in the States. And a lot of those have a tone and a feeling that is similar to this, even though styles vary vastly.
So there is a, as we mentioned, there's a film version of this. It was an award winner. It was originally at the Cannes Film Festival in 2007. But Scout, you said you watched the film, correct?
Yes, I did. I watched the film. I watched it in a strange way, which is I read like about a third of this book and I went to look at like the trailers that would have been produced to remind myself about the movie, and in looking for trailers found that the whole film was available for free on YouTube. And so then I just started watching the movie up until the point where I had read in the book, and then I did that like 3 more times where I kept reading a little bit of the book and then going and watching the movie for comparison. I would highly recommend the movie. Even if you haven't read this book, I would really recommend the movie. It is an incredible adaptation. I really am impressed by the way that Marjane, who was co-director of it and co-creator of it, was clearly working with the team to basically change some minor aspects of her own history to streamline the story so that it was like really a narrative in the movie in a way that this has narrative elements. It like tells a story, but it's a lot more biographical, and the movie feels a lot more like has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And like little things are tweaked here and there as far as like who said what thing or what happened exactly when. And I think it's really impressive to be able to approach your own history and life with that kind of objective view and be able to say like, yeah, I can change what my life was to make it a better animated film. I think that's really cool. And it looks amazing. It looks so good.
It does look really nice.
Incredible.
I have watched the trailers for it. I haven't actually watched the movie yet, but like it is very gorgeous.
It's really, really beautiful and a really cool. It's different. It looks different than the book does, but it so well still feels as though has the essence of the way the book looks. Like it's clearly been edited a little bit to make it easier to animate. Like the edges aren't quite as blocky and the lines aren't as thick, but it still reads so much as like, oh, that's Persepolis. I think the only other thing I have to say really is it's an important part of like the life story that is being told here, but I found the Austria section in the second half to be so much less interesting than the Iran sections generally. Mm-hmm. But still fun, just like did not compel me in the same way.
I would agree on that. I think part one is definitely more, I think it has a stronger structure.
Mm-hmm. The structure is stronger, yeah. And then even near the end of part two, she does go back to Iran, and there's some stuff in there that, again, really stuck out to me in a way that a lot of the stuff, it's being a teenager in Austria. Yeah. It's tough. I get it, but
being a teenager with literally no support system around you.
It's rough.
Well, I say we go ahead into the spoiler section then.
Yeah.
This book has a lot to say. Mm-hmm. There is a lot to discuss. There is a lot being said. There is a lot to, like, think about. And I think it does it really well. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't feel like a lecture to me.
Yeah.
It feels like, hey, this is my experience, and what you take away from it is what you take away from it, but this is, like, how I have seen things. One of the things that, like, really was an interesting kind of through line through the whole book to me is her interest in, like, political theory.
Mm-hmm.
The comic book about
the Marx comic book.
The Marx comic book is such a funny concept.
It's incredible.
And I'm just like, I cannot imagine that being like the book that I'm reading as a child is a comic book about Marx and Descartes like throwing rocks at each other. But like even in the Austria, especially in the Austria section, there's so much, like she meets all of these people who are like very person in your political science class.
She somehow finds continually really good at finding like the most annoying people to surround herself with.
But she meets all of these teenagers who are just forming their political opinions in the middle of there is so much going on politically in the world, and the approaches to all of them is just her inner commentary on all of them is so funny when it's like so clear that they are only speaking in theory.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is one of the things that like you can definitely like see her growth through it, because when she is a child and reading this comic book, it is all like she's seeing it through the lens of theory, and then she gets to the point of like, I have lived through some really shitty stuff, and there's a lot more nuance here than I think we're all giving things credit.
I did look into what that comic book could be.
Yes.
And I will say, this is like people digging through a meta filter like thread around like what they think it might be. And apparently she was interviewed and it was a real book. She said it was the only comic book she ever had. And the only book that seems to meet what it probably would have been would be Marx for Beginners, which has been around since at least 1976.
Incredible.
And I have downloaded at least some parts of Marx for Beginners that I will I'll at least share with us. I don't feel great about giving it to the listener, but you can find a copy of Marx for Beginners.
Oh, I'm excited.
Oh, it's good that people make things.
This is pages 66 to 82. I have not gotten to look at this much at all.
Did Jill Silverstein draw this?
Right?
Style.
Wow. This is interesting.
I'm obsessed with this Marx that looks like a fried egg on page 70.
God, he does look like a fried egg.
He does. I also love the like word art next to him. And man?
Okay, this definitely like this makes sense because of the way that like she also talks about like to me, Marx and God look exactly like each other.
Yes.
And I'm like, yeah, okay, this definitely like I can see how that.
I just love that she has an idea of what God looks like.
I do too. I love it. It's great.
I'm desperate to know who did these like insert illustrations. It looks so much like Shel Silverstein or like Schoolhouse Rock.
We're going to find this out.
Yeah, it does look like it does give Schoolhouse Rock a little bit.
So Marx for Beginners by Rius, Rius.
Mexican political cartoon. Okay.
Mexican intellectual.
This tracks.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Prolific.
A lot of stuff.
Mao for Beginners from 1980.
Okay.
Cuba for Beginners from 1977.
The Annoying
Nicaragua
Catholic.
for Beginners from 1984.
The Book of Bad Words. Incredible.
So yeah, that's probably the book she was reading.
That's amazing.
That seems correct.
Wow.
That's really cool. I love the internet. I love that people can find this shit.
She was interviewed in 2005 and she didn't know what it was, but they seem to have found it.
Never underestimate the power of an obscure internet forum thread trying to find something.
It's so true. They are some of the strongest researchers that we have in the world. Exploitation in block letters is really funny. Okay, I'm closing this. We're talking about Persepolis.
I feel like we got to put Marx for Beginners on the further reading.
So each chapter kind of is its own little story to an extent. Like they all have little, like, the blank kind of titles. And I will just say, like, the one that I always, like, come back to and remember and, like, was the one that, like, most of the students, like, seemed to kind of focus on is The Key, which is the one where they first start having to kind of do a lot of performance in their school. They have to, like, beat their chests in these, like, faux funeral marches for the martyrs. And they kind of start to not take it very seriously. And then they find out that Marjane she is kind of in a higher class family than a lot of folks. You know, her family is able to employ a maid. They have a nice car.
They got a Cadillac.
They are fairly well off. And so she finds out from their maid that the poorer children are given these plastic keys that are painted gold and told that, like, if they're lucky enough to die in the war, this key, as long as you keep it around your neck, is going to get you into heaven. And it's just such a really rough chapter that ends with an image, another pair of juxtaposed panels where the first is all of these young boys with the keys around their neck and they're all silhouetted, exploding, essentially. And the panel directly beneath it is her talking about her particular point in life right now where she's going to her very first party as a kid and they're all jumping around as well. well, but they're having a great time, and the poor children are not, very clearly. But that particular panel of the young boys with the keys around their necks has always been like the one that I think of when I think of this book in particular. And I just think that particular chapter has so much packed into it in the span of 8 pages that it's actually like kind of crazy to see how much she is able to kind of convey in such a short period of time.
Yeah, it is a deeply haunting image, and it is a deeply haunting chapter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was, I didn't realize that, but that was the last one that I read last night. I got about 60% through the first volume.
Oh, God.
Yeah. There's a reason I stopped reading last night.
I was going to say, because I remember you saying last night, you're like, I have to stop.
Yeah. I got about that far and I was like, cool. I think I'm going to go to bed now.
Yeah.
And then about like 2 hours ago, decided to sit down starting at the wine and finish it off.
Which the wine has some very funny moments in it too. Yeah. The panel of their nurse stomping the grapes for the wine and saying, God forgive me.
God forgive me is really good.
I find so much the moments where she decides to be like a regular ass teenager, just being a rebel. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's just because I'm old now, but I find it like I get so nervous for her because it's fully valid for her to like still want to be a teenager in a world that is like rapidly closing in around her. Right.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I'm like, honey, you can't, you're going to die. Like, they will murder you in the streets.
And I think that's part of obviously it is a different type of privilege than the one we have as white Americans, but that is part of, I think, the privilege that she had
that her class affords
youth.
her.
Yeah. Because her parents encourage it. They're like, yeah, we'll bring you back like illegal posters and we fully support you like going and doing this.
Well, even just the fact that they sent her away is an opportunity that not, other families don't have.
Exactly.
Yeah, that a lot of families would not have access to.
But like, I also 100% get it. I'm like, girl, if you get caught, like, I understand you're a teenager and you do not have a fully formed frontal lobe, but
please,
we need to think about things a little bit.
Well, she does almost get caught. She does almost get like put in detention.
Yeah. And she does, I believe it's in the second part, like she does get arrested when she comes back, like several times.
It's not just it's not just her being a teen, because as a full adult, she's 21.
Married. She was like 21.
She's married, but she's still 21, and 21 is still pretty young, but still should be old enough, I think. If I wouldn't be doing this shit, I wouldn't be.
I have too much anxiety is the thing, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, no, she like, it is definitely like, I think it is equal parts worrisome and like, I admire her bravery in a sense of like, you know what? Like the fact that you are still able to like find ways to do this is really incredible, but also so concerning.
Yeah.
I'm getting ads now for the Communist Manifesto.
Oh, okay.
Because I've searched Marx for Beginners so many times.
Well, it happens.
I'm not glad. I think it's funny that it's taken this long. It's
that, you know what? That is true.
I don't know that like advertising is like, I don't, people are thinking there's like paying ads for the Communist Manifesto.
Oh, that's so, yeah. Who's buying ads for the Communist Manifesto? Shout out to them. That's so funny. But actually, yeah, I have a note that I think ties a little bit into what we were just talking about with the stuff that Marjane does, which is like, I also admire her authorial bravery to show a lot of her less heroic moments.
100%
in this book. More power to her. There are stories in here I would not put in my memoir.
Yeah.
Tell me some of the ones from the second volume that I
So the one
missed.
in the second volume that I absolutely would never have put in there because I would be so ashamed, which she was ashamed of it, but like she still put it in there, is she was, when she comes back to Iran and she is kind of dating the man that she ends up marrying for a period of time. They're
not like allowed to be seen on,
public.
out in public. They're not allowed to be seen in public like as a couple because they are not married.
Yeah, you are not allowed to be out in public with a man that you are not married to or like
directly
is
related
part
to.
of your direct household.
Mm-hmm.
And she's wearing lipstick and she's like, oh my God, they're going to get me for this. Like I'm about to meet,
another thing they will
meet
get
with
you
my
for.
boyfriend and I'm wearing lipstick and here come the folks that are like genuinely like rounding people up in the street. And she sees a guy nearby and to get away from the police, she tells them that he was like saying, like catcalling her basically.
Yeah.
And like being inappropriate. And they take him and they put him in the van and she and her boyfriend laugh about it because they think it's a hilarious situation.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And then she goes home and she tells her grandmother, because her grandmother, I will say, kind of not a very prim and proper grandmother. She likes to crack a bad joke.
Mm-hmm.
So she thinks that her grandmother's going to get a kick out of it. She thinks she's going to find it funny. Her grandmother absolutely does not, as
Correct.
you know, most people would not. And it is a really important moment for her because it does kind of show that I think it is very much the moment like where she realizes like, oh, I've had this distance from everything that happened here. Like, this is a genuinely serious issue that I caused to this person. And, you know, her grandmother tells her off. They have a little bit of a falling out and later they make up. But like, so it is an important moment for her as a person. Mm-hmm. But holy shit, I would never admit to something like that. If that were something that if I were her, I would have never put that in my memoir because, oh my God.
It's something I would privately learn from. It's not something I am telling publicly. There's no way. And it is brave of her to do it because I do think that it's an important, like, it's also important to show yourself being shitty. But oh my God, getting a man arrested?
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's tough. It's tough.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and it's, you know, she has a moment as a kid where they chase around a kid with nails, like pretending that they're gonna
torture him.
That they're gonna torture him because they finally learned about torture, and she's like, "Oh, like that." You can kind of like, "Ooh, that's not a good look," but it's also like, okay, you're a kid and you just learned about torture. Like, who among us has not? Like, children will do those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm. Children will model the things that they see in the world, whether those are good things or bad things.
Yeah, but it is still a thing where it's like, "Oh, girl." That's not a good look.
Yeah. A lot of the stuff in Austria is also, there's moments in Austria where I'm like, I would not put that in here.
Yeah, I do agree. It's like, I think it's I think it's one of the things that like makes me enjoy it more than a lot of other, because I've read only a couple of other like biography or autobiographies or memoirs, and I feel like this one is so much better to me because like it does not feel like she is trying to put herself up on a pedestal. She admits to the horrible things that she has done, which is something that like is so hard to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the moment where we find out the fate of Uncle Anoosh is probably one of my favorite moments from the whole thing, especially part one.
I think also what's really interesting about that particular moment is that is the only image that is not contained by a panel.
Oh, wow.
What page is it?
It's on page
It's 70 for me.
I assume the first volume is all the same pages.
Yes,
so.
I would assume so.
Yeah, it looks like it must line up with the the double edition too. Yeah, so this is a story about she's told multiple stories about her uncle Anoosh, who was a political prisoner of the Shah for several years during the the political regime that came immediately before the revolution into the religious extremism. And basically at one point after I want to make sure that I get the timeline right. Why did he get arrested again? It was because what?
That's when everybody started to leave the country because the
new regime that they thought was going to be less controlling than the Shah's turned out to be more so.
Yeah, yes. It's kind of when the folks who started like knocking on doors to find dissidents essentially like just started things.
Yeah. It is that everybody who was opposed to the Shah is then again considered like an enemy of the state even after the regime change. Because it turns out that the regime that they had hoped would be more progressive is actually worse in a lot of ways. And so he is taken back to prison and he is executed as supposedly a Russian spy. And the page where we find that out is just at the top of the page. It is a drawing of a newspaper with Russian spy executed and a picture of Anoosh and two little swans because he made and gifted to Marjane swans made out of bread from prison. And the whole story of Anoosh is very effective for me.
I mean, like, not even just like the narrative of it and all of that. It's also just like, he seems like he was a really sweet uncle.
Yeah. He treats her like, he doesn't treat her like a little kid, basically. Like when he comes to stay with them, they have all these political discussions. And the entire time she's like sitting on his lap, listening, participating. Like he does genuinely like really enjoy spending time with her. He is like the only visitor that he is allowed to have. He's only allowed to have one visitor and he requests for her to be able to come visit him. And he does seem like just such a good uncle to her. He seems like they both really cared for each other. And I think right after that, there's a couple panels where her depiction of God comes in and is like, hey, what's the problem? And in a deeply relatable to anyone who has been religious and gone through a deeply heartbreaking loss, she yells at God, tells him that she never wants to see him again. And then the next panel is her floating adrift in space crying. And it's so sad, guys.
It's really sad. And then the war starts.
Well, and then the war
starts.
If I recall correctly, we don't see God again.
Not until very late in the second.
Got it.
Yeah. He does not come back for a long time.
Yeah. I think there's one or two God callbacks in the second volume, if I'm remembering correctly.
But yeah, in the first volume, that is, I believe, the last time we see him.
Yeah. I had a silly one, which was Aldi mention, which really made me laugh.
Yeah.
It is the same Aldi. She when she goes to Austria as a young teen, she's one of the only things that she does is walk to the grocery store and back from her boarding house. And she goes to an Aldi, which is just very, very funny to see. I don't think I realized how long Aldi's been around. I looked it up on Wikipedia after this, and it's been around since the 40s.
Aldi's a bigger deal than you think it is, just generally.
It is, yeah. It keeps showing up, and I had never. It's one of those things where I had never really heard of it until a couple of years ago. And now everybody's talking about Aldi all the time. I'm like, damn, okay, Aldi's got it, I guess.
I wonder if there's a comic that tells the history of Aldi and Lidl.
I would be fascinated by that, honestly.
And Trader Joe's.
Trader Joe's.
History of Trader Joe's is a weird one. Trader Joe's make your parking lots better.
They never will.
They never will. But oh my God, how is it every Trader Joe's has the worst parking lot known to man?
True.
How
Scout,
is it
do you
possible?
know that Trader Joe's is like part of Aldi history?
I didn't know that Trader Joe's is part of Aldi history.
Yeah. Aldi split into Aldi Nord and Aldi Sud because brothers had like a spat, and Aldi Nord owns Trader Joe's.
Oh shit!
King Lear, but grocery stores.
This is so funny that it's like they split, the princes splitting the country.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this
really
is
incredible.
Funny.
And you would think that
know.
Lidl would be related, but it's actually a different company.
Shout out to Lidl.
Anyway, that's not going in the podcast.
This is from the second volume. It is during a time when she is going to art school in Iran, and she is sort of thinking about the regime and culture and everything. And here's what she has to say. The regime had understood that one person leaving her house while asking herself, are my trousers long enough? Is my veil in place? Can my makeup be seen? Are they going to whip me? No longer asks herself, where is my freedom of thought? Where is my freedom of speech? My life, is it livable? What's going on in the political prisons? It's only natural. When we're afraid, we lose all sense of analysis and reflection. Our fear paralyzes us. Besides, fear has always been the driving force behind all dictators' repression. Showing your hair or putting on makeup logically became acts of rebellion. When you're asking yourself about your safety, you no longer ask yourself about your freedom is the thing to me.
And that is the thing. Not only I think that this entire book kind of gets across over and over again, but it is the thing that I see echoed nowadays all over the place. If you are unable to ensure your general well-being, and it's the thing too, not even just with regimes, is one of the things about poverty. If you are unable to like know where your next meal comes from or know where you are going to be sleeping that night, you do not have the mental energy to do much else except be put upon by the system.
Worker exploitation is this as well. Like, this is the way that employers exploit their workers, by not giving them any space to be able to think about what their quality of life is.
And it reminds me of her family members who are these like political idealists, right? That, I mean, like even Uncle Anoosh is like often ignoring the things that are happening in front of him to, I mean, in sort of like a self-protective way, right? But also in a way that's like intellectualizing what's going to be happening rather than like looking at the reality of what's going on in front of him. There's like the several pages in a row where he's like, don't worry, it's all going to be okay. And he's got this idea that like no one's going to let the religious fundamentalists continue to rule. And you know, that ends in his death. It's just like it's a flip of the same idea to me. It just comes from someone with a different perspective. I don't know. It's like hard for me to like think about that stuff, just like because like I actively am in the middle of just completely moving my life to another place, and like part of that is safety. Part of that is the fact that my husband is Latino and doesn't feel comfortable here anymore. And like, that's not all of it, but it probably wouldn't be happening without it. You know?
It's probably a pretty big driving force of it.
Yeah. And so it's hard for me to have like deeper thoughts than like, yeah, man, I get it. Like, I do understand what it's like to have to think more about practicality on a day-to-day than the things that I actually want to be true about the world. I would love to get to be an idealist about a possible future. And it's not, you know, that's not me saying that those thoughts are not valuable. Those thoughts are extremely valuable. I just wish that we had the like freedom to have them. Yeah.
A lot of it to me isn't even idealism so much as like helping people be aware that this is a thing that is happening, that it is not, that it does not not necessarily that it doesn't have to be the status quo, because a lot of times there is not much that you can do, but being able to communicate to people that, like, yes, this is what is happening to you is a form of oppression, you know, no matter what you feel your situation might be. And it will benefit you to think about it that way and find ways in which you can do what you can to resist that where you can, even if it is in tiny, tiny ways.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, you're totally right. Like, getting to have the thought, what's going on in the political prisons is not idealism.
Yeah.
But no, you're absolutely right. What do you mean by the final layout of each part are parallel?
So
the final pages of volume 1 and 2, right?
And part 2. So the final pages of each volume basically are paralleling each other. So the first volume is when she is first going to Austria and she turns around to see her family, and her mom has fainted and her dad is carrying her away and he's like all in silhouette. And she's looking at the glass, like looking through the glass, face pressed up against it, horrified. And the final panel, in the final page of part 2, is when she is leaving Iran for what is potentially the last time. Like, this is theoretically the last time she will be there. And the image of her leaving is the same, essentially. She is at that same window, but now she is waving, she is smiling, her parents are both smiling and waving, her grandmother is crying, and visually it is a more upbeat panel than the previous one. But then you get the note at the end where she mentions that she only saw her grandmother once more, and basically this is like one of the last times that she got to see her. It is far more depressing to me, this panel, than the one where she's leaving to Austria, because Austria is being framed at the end of the first part as like overall a positive thing. Even though it is her parents are very upset about her leaving, it is being framed more of like, this is going to be her means of getting a better life, getting an escape. And while that is also true to an extent with this, it feels more painful. It is more final in this part, which obviously because it is the last page of the book. Mm-hmm. But I think it is specifically the note about like, there's so much more text with it about like, this is like basically one of the last times I saw my grandmother, who she is like very close to. I just think it's a very interesting thing to do to kind of make both of these both volumes like kind of have these parallel endings. Specifically of being in an airport, leaving her home, just kind of even symbolically kind of is really impactful to me, of, you know, symbolizing her escaping freedom, but also showing like what she is leaving behind. I just thought they were interesting things to point out.
Yeah, I really, really like the parallel. My only problem with this final page of volume 2 is that it feels like she needed like a couple more pages. There's a lot of information that is smushed into like this last panel, even just with like sort of the, and then I saw my grandmother one more time and then she died. That doesn't flow as well as like that last panel of the first volume gets me so much, because it is the image telling so much of the story. And here the image is telling the story, but then she's also got like all this stuff. Like, I want to get one more word in, and I'm curious about. I wonder why that I would have probably structured it a little bit differently. It really surprised me when I turned to the page and that was the end. Once I realized that it was paralleling the end of the first volume, I liked it a lot more. But when I first finished it, I was like, we're okay. Okay, we're done.
For sure. I can definitely, I can agree with that. I feel like in part 2 as well, she is a lot more wordy.
Yeah, it feels like she's got a lot more stuff that she's got a lot more ideas that she wants to get across, and she doesn't always know like how to simplify them as much, which makes sense because you're an adult and so you have a lot more complex thoughts about things.
Yeah.
Maybe compared to like the stories that you're telling about your childhood. Mm-hmm. But yes, I agree. I do think that the back half is wordier than the first volume for sure.
Any final thoughts?
I was really worried about having a tough time articulating my thoughts about this book, but I feel like I ended up being able to say what I wanted to say pretty well. So thank you, my friends, for being here with me on the journey and reading this book with me.
Thank you for letting me in, even though I didn't finish it.
Matt, we're always happy to talk to you.
I didn't even know it existed.
So, further reading, Scout, do you want to talk about the Blue Sky hashtag?
Yes, there is a hashtag on Blue Sky that is Ice Out Comics. This is a sort of like minor movement that's been going on with comic artists on Blue Sky. A lot of US-based artists have shared short comics about their own experiences with state violence in recent weeks. We will also put a link to a post about it from the Cartoonists Co-op. It's really, I would recommend looking at them to see a lot of stories, both about difficulties that people have been having, but also a lot of them highlight the ways that community is there for them when other parts of their country is not, in ways that are really impactful. And they remind me a lot of some of the more dire moments that feel like they are paralleling our current moment in Persepolis.
I also have two other comics that kind of go, I feel, hand in hand with Persepolis as sort of graphic novel memoirs or historical texts. And that is, as Matt mentioned earlier, Mouse by Art Spiegelman and March by John Lewis, Andrew Adden, and Nate Powell. I personally have not read March, but I've heard like very good things about it, and it is generally like classified with Mouse and Persepolis for like excellent, again going back to like the teaching times, excellent teaching material for this type of book, essentially.
Cool.
And Matt would like to recommend Marx for Beginners.
Yeah. Read Marx for Beginners by Reuse, the Mexican comics artist and political thinker.
There we go.
That I know nothing else about, to be clear.
Yep.
We cannot vouch for, we do not endorse.
Yeah, we don't know nothing about this guy. In Sequence is a member of the Worst Garbage Podcast Network. You can find us at theworstgarbage.online. Panelists, do you guys have anything to plug this week?
Okay, so right now, doing YouTube, doing podcasts is my full-time job currently.
Hell yeah.
I'm working on, to be totally upfront, working on making that like not totally the case, but I'm not trying to get another full-time job right now. And so at this point, I can't give you the link because it won't be up yet. But you can help support in other ways. But I'm working on like restructuring Ko-Fi, opening a Patreon so that you can choose where you want to go. The links to both of those will be at matthorton.live, as will the link to my YouTube channel, Flow State. And yeah, I would just say like, hey, this is what I do now. And if you like what I do, you can support that over at those links, or even just like check it out from the links at matthorton.live.
There will be an episode of In Sequence out between the declaration that I made on the end of the Beast Complex episode and this, but the declaration worked. I am indeed blogging in the year 2026. You can go to my Ko-fi page, ko-fi.com/humblegoat, to see my blog posts, where I'm just going to be talking about stuff I've read, stuff I've watched, thoughts. I have a post about lists that is ready to publish, that I will probably publish after we finish this recording. And otherwise, you can find me on Blue Sky and Tumblr at HumbleGoat and see the art that I do, including our podcast cover art, at scoutwilkinson.myportfolio.com.
I am not leading nearly as exciting a life as these two, clearly. I don't have anything in particular to plug, but you can find me, as always, at plottwist.card.co. We want to thank you all for listening and encourage you all to support your local library and comic shop. They could use any help that you can give them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Also, if you can look into your local mutual aid groups, look into a lot of local groups are giving training about what to do if there are ICE raids in your area. Find little ways to connect to your community, because community is the thing that's going to get us through the tough times.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody stay safe and find joy.
Correct.
Absolutely.
TWG, the worst garbage, online.